Darko Babic.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for invitation for this webinar. I'm happy to share my part, and I think that my part will be even extra compared to the what Peter said, because I'm discussing what happened, for most what happened in Zagreb. Yeah, so not entire Croatia, but the capital of Croatia, Zagreb, during the pandemic, because on the 22nd of March we had earthquake. Just not okay. I will. Okay, yeah, that's it. So the special case of Croatia, Zagreb, the capital foremost, is that from like the rest of the Europe, or majority of the Europe, from the mid-March, late March, depends on the country, we were more or less in lockdown in Croatia due to the COVID pandemic. But then on the 22nd March at 6:24 in the morning, the earthquake of magnitude of 5.5 actually struck Zagreb. The strongest one actually from 1880. So what, in 140 years, we have the second strongest earthquake here. So what I'm sharing here, what I'm trying to show you is just not necessary solution, but what we said and what we commented here are kind of the double trouble which happened to Zagreb in general, but then foremost the Zagreb museums. These images from the Technical Museum in Zagreb, luckily without big damage, but you can see that the clock was stopped working at 6:23, so exactly at the moment of the earthquake. So it's kind of the witness of the exact moment of the 22nd of March. Just few illustration about the situation. What you can see on this slide is the dust over the city center. So the dust you can see here, that's more or less downtown, as on this image too, with the cathedral. There's a cathedral here. The dust you can see is of course not the pollution, not anything else, but the dust coming from the earth which happened. Few images of damages. This is one of the image which was sent around the world, in a very downtown, the city center, and another one which was on a newspaper. So the just damage in a very heart of the Zagreb city. Unfortunately, one young girl died. So we can say only one, then later on another worker died, but not directly as a consequence of the earthquake. So we can say luckily only one, but of course every human life is so precious. So that's the damage, that's the human sacrifice, or the deaths we have as a consequence. Few more image of the city center. On the very the day of the earthquake, and then we have that situation which do have connections, still speaking about the city in general. Of course, because of situation, people went out. At that time, it was already recommended, as I said, that you're supposed not to gather in a group. You're supposed to, have the physical distancing and so on and so on. But when you had extraordinary situation like this one, of course, that was impossible to control, and people just went out. They started to group to be together. This is the retired home, people from retired home institution, of course, going out. No matter it was March, actually, that Sunday the temperature was pretty low. Even the next day we had a little bit of snow, so even the weather condition was not good, far from perfect to staying outside anyhow. And staying outside means not making a group if possible, and that was hard. That was very hard to achieve. Or this illustration of evacuation of the babies from the hospital, because many hospitals in Zagreb are in in city center from the, in a building from late 19th century, so with a heavy damage. So as I said, I'm still speaking about in general. The experts from the public health institution was pretty afraid what will happen because of the extraordinary situation of grouping of people and so on. Luckily, statistics later on, within the next 2 weeks, proved that no extra COVID-19 cases was produced by that gathering of the people in Zagreb just immediately after the earthquake on March 22nd in the morning. And now we are coming to more close to situation with museums, and I will quote one of the director of Zagreb Museum of Decorative Art, who was immediately saying, quoting, "If I saw a disaster film in which a city is struck by an earthquake during a global pandemic, I would stop watching such a nonsense." And that was really something which was in heads of many people here. Some reaction of, again, I'm not speaking about only museum people, but some of reaction we actually heard later on that because it was, early morning, that many people were still in bed, and some people reacted that it's impossible to have earthquake because we have pandemic, so it's impossible to have two things like that at the same time. But it does not happen, but unfortunately it happened, and it was true. Damage on the buildings, just to give you some information in general, there is a 41 museum in Zagreb, the capital, with around 3.5 million of objects, which represent around 57% of entire museum collection, entire museum objects of Republic of Croatia. So many of those museums, again, which do exist in Zagreb, are, of course, and in many other cases, in downtown, and consequently, many of them have, depending on the quality of the building, to be honest, now we are aware of that. It's not only how palace or building is old, but indeed the quality of the building. Many of them have, middle, but unfortunately some have very, very high level of damage. This is the image of the Museum of Arts and Craft, the top floor. The image saying the 1,000 words, so it was completely damaged, and they have the real issue to stabilize the top floor, the third floor, because it was realistic that it easily, with the aftershocks, which you always have when you have the earthquake, with the aftershocks, it will collapse. With a quick reaction of the city and the fire brigade of the city of Zagreb, they stabilized that, and the situation was saved in the sense that no collapse happened regarding the building, except some things you are seeing on an image, so more or less regarding the roof and the walls, but not complete collapse of the building. The second one, which was hit hard, was Archaeological Museum, again with the damage on the roof, with the damage on a building, and of course, and as in case of the previous one, with the damage on objects. In here, image from the permanent exhibition. Just a few more illustration. This is the Šeno house, the house of the quite famous Croatian novel. And again, the damage on the infrastructure of the building is pretty obvious and very high. And again, one image more from Archaeological Museum. Image from the local church again in a downtown. As many people discussed, it was kind of the luck that everything happened in early morning, and some people are saying that we had a luck that we actually started the lockdown. So ironically, and this is partly true because, okay, 6:24 in the morning on a Sunday, not so many people are in the streets, not so many people are in buildings, but because of the start of the lockdown, even those few people which could and dangerous place, they were not there. So, and that was probably the part of the reason why the number of casualties was pretty low. Again, the school museum, as I said, some of museums have the higher level of damage. Some of them are on a level that sanation or intervention will be possible in a short time or mid-term, with not necessary requests to remove the collection, to remove entire interior outside of the building. Although some of them, at least Croatian History Museum, Croatian Sport Museum, and part of Museum of Arts and Crafts will be removed, as it seems will be removed completely. Part of the, not part, but entire Croatian Natural History Museum too, but their situation is slightly different only because the Croatian Natural History Museum was already in the process of remodeling entire building, just starting remodeling entire building. So they actually had already solved the way where to remove the entire collection and interior because of the entire project which was going on. But for a history museum, for sports museum, arts and craft museums, and some other parts, in case solution was not there, and to be honest, it was not still solved. Again, some illustration from ethnographic museum in a city, and as I said, many of them, well, to be honest, all of them had the damage, and just the difference of the level of the damages in between the quality of the building. Reaction, of course, was again in a way that extraordinary situation asked for extraordinary measures. And I must be honest here that immediately after I received, as a ICOM Croatia chair, I received calls from the colleagues from the region, then from ICOM Paris, of course, too, from some other institution, including Smithsonian Institution and so on, over the next days. But even with the closest colleagues from, for example, ICOM Slovenia, which offered immediately help almost practically the same day, then when you start to think what is possible to do, when you even think about, is it can you put something in a van or some small truck and deliver as immediately help assistance to the Croatian Zagreb museums? It was not possible to do it because even in Croatia as well in Slovenia, we have strict restriction about the moving of the people, even within the country, and crossing the border was practically impossible. So you just in a second you are aware that no matter of the willingness and so on, you more or less you cannot do anything, or better to say, Zagreb Museum professionals were on their own, except of course sharing the manuals and advices online, which is useful, and we done that as a part of ICOM Croatia Museum Documentation Center, which done a very good job about the regarding the covering the damage and assisting in that way. So that was done, but we had Croatian museum professionals, Zagreb, must be precise here all the time, Zagreb museum professionals were aware of that manuals, but you have them anyhow. Okay, now you need to use it, but even in those manuals, when you're starting to check the things, you don't have the situation of double trouble, so to say. So, if you start to follow some of the suggestions, of course you can follow many, but if you start to follow some of the suggestions, then, you will be stuck because, you need to provide the extra equipment because of pandemic. You need to provide all those requests, which was official, which you need to follow. And then you have the discrepancy in between things you can do and reality situation, what you have in front of you. Few more images just to give you illustration, just to offer you the idea. Again, the previous one was the Natural History Museum. This is again Arts and Crafts Museum and the damage on the roofs. And this is of course going beyond the museum song, Zagreb Cathedral, which during the earthquake, one bell tower, the top of the bell tower fell down. Luckily, nobody was there, as I said, and later on, few days later on, people, the experts actually concluded that the top of the second bell tower must be turned down too, because it's just relying on 5% of the structure. So it was the matter of the strong wind, and without removing it with a strong wind, it will collapse. And this is just my personal. This is my house. So unfortunately, in a way, I was living in a city center. So the damage of my house was, compared to those in museum in a way. One of the things which came later on was this kind of the stickers. So you have the three type of the stickers. In our case, green means everything is more or less okay. You can continue your work no matter of some small damages. Then you have the yellow one, more or less saying that you have some damages which could influence the work, but if you can do some immediately repair, and after that you will be probably in position to, with another check, in position to continue your work. And you have the red one with the red sticker which saying that you cannot use building anymore without the complete structural refurbishing and doing of that. And this is exactly the image from the Croatian History Museum, saying that the building is completely out of the operation, not possible to use because of the damage due to the earthquake. What happened later on, of course, the sanation off, which took quite a lot of time. Luckily, some museums, with the help of the ministry and the Ministry of Culture, have immediately assistance, as I said, like fire brigade in the case of Museum of Arts and Crafts, some other museums too. But again, due to the pandemic lockdown going on, any kind of serious intervention or the works and so on was completely dependent on the museum staff, or better to say, not even entire museum staff, again because of the restrictions we all are familiar with. So even with in that extraordinary situation, Zagreb Museum professional was in situation that no help from outside, no help from inside, more or less, and working with a reduced capacity anyhow. And just another one. And then after some times, of course, the work continue and it was intensified. Luckily, we had, speaking about Croatia in general, we had situation too that the damage, the damage of pandemic, the number of the people with a coronavirus was not so high. So Croatia starts to open at the end of April, which is still 1 month after the after the earthquake, but very first week or two, the situation was pretty, frozen in a way, except, as I said, reduced staff within the institutions and organized in a way how it was possible at that time. And of course, the reaction which was necessary, and just illustration of that. So removing in those buildings which have serious damages, removing of the most important objects, and then the rest of the collection on a safer place. In many cases, it was the basement, of course. As I said, only the Croatian History Museum, Croatian Natural History Museum had ready, steady solution to remove the collection to another place, no matter it was not in a day, because of the projects they are doing anyhow. And for the rest of the museum, the situation is that they are using their own capacities as a basement, or the most safe place within the building, or step by step removing the part of the collection to another safe location. Just an illustration of that process. What happened on the way? As I said, on exactly 27th of April, which was Monday, so on 28th of April, museum in Croatia, so Zagreb included, had permission to be open again. Not all museums in Zagreb opened because of not because of pandemic, but because of the earthquake and the interconnected damage. But over the time, more and more museums start to be open too, and no matter not all of them, those with the highest level of infrastructural damages are still closed even today. Online activities and everything else which Peter already discussed was done by Croatian museums, speaking now in general, done by the Zagreb museums too. Some of museums, for example, I must say that the Archaeological Museum, even in that really challenging time, really really used in a best way the social media, informing the public about what is going on regarding the immediate reaction of the museum staff of removing the objects from the permanent exhibition and so on. Many other museums done that in the same way. At the same time, with the online activities regarding the audience and regarding the plans for a new opening, including International Museum Day, as well as real-time collecting. We had some discussion here, again, especially with colleagues from the Archaeological Museum, which had idea. Some of the staff had idea to leave the part of the permanent exhibition as it was immediately the second after the earthquake, so communicating that part of the moment for a future generation. Not sure what will be the final decision. It was not so practical at the very first moment, because even if you leave it that way, at that time we were not aware when actually the museums will be open again. So could be situation that you have that situation not touching anything for 3 months, and nobody could actually visit that and have that different experience. But for sure they will, as all of them done quite good documentation, but for sure some of Zagreb Museum do have idea that the parts of their permanent exhibition in the future will include that moment of the Zagreb earthquake from March 22nd. And I think I will stop here. I will just say that in case of Zagreb, which is another discussion but could be interesting in broad level, that we start discussion about the centralized depot, centralized for all Zagreb Museum 20 years ago, with some initiatives started there. Unfortunately, so on remote location, done with the standards of today, and so on. Unfortunately, we didn't done that, and the earthquake, as one of the positive part in a way, actually put that again on a priority list and discussion about that. And this is the image just of the, I will say, life after. This is on the image you can see two museum directors, one on the left and one on the far right side. And the guy without the certificate is actually one of director of Croatian oil company, which supported the Zagreb museums with a donation regarding the damages after the earthquake. So that even that part maybe in our case will start to create more sensibilization of cooperation in between the corporative sector and the cultural sector in general, but here especially in between corporative sector and the museums, which we had in the past, but not, of course, not at the level like the Western Europe or some other parts of the world. But actually, the sensibilization of the importance of this connection is something which we could say as a positive outcome of the situation we have in Zagreb. I'm afraid I was more than 15 minutes as usual, but that's all from my side. I have many other data and documents and so on. So as I said, I didn't offer any solution, but just kind of introduction and extraordinary situation which we have here in Zagreb.
Thank you very much, Darko. You and your colleagues had a lot to deal with to respond to a disaster while you had a disaster ongoing. So as a lot of us know, there's a cycle to disasters, and there's preparedness, mitigation, response, and then you're in recovery. But so many times we have to deal with different parts of the cycle all at the same time. You might be recovering from a past disaster still after many years. You have to keep preparing for the next disaster, and you may have to respond even when you're still trying to recover from the last one. So we were all thinking about you and pulling for you at the time, and it was very frustrating not to be able to help more. So thanks very much.